Hello and welcome to GRADD Dialogue. Today my guest is Tom Lovett. Tom is the MPO director, we call it, at GRADD office. He's in charge of urban planning in Owensboro and Daviess County, and especially anything that deals with transportation needs, the traffic counts, the future projects, and everything that affects our region. Tom, welcome to the GRADD Dialogue. I think you joined us in 2017.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right.
And I think your background is in media. I think you've worked with the Gleaner in
Henderson, Gleaner, Evansville, and the Owensboro newspaper, all three of those.
And now you are in regional planning and everything else.
Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
For somebody who used to write the columns and edit the newspaper and everything else, within a short time, you were really get a great grasp on transportation needs, and also knows the streets and alleys and everything else in our Owensboro, Daviess County.
Well, thank you. As the job I used to do, we covered all these issues. So having a grasp of how the transportation, the state highway plan works, and how some of these things happen, that's some of that's in my background, which has really helped me with the transition.
Your intro says that you are a transplanted Yankee.
Yes.
However, you've been here for 40 years.
Yeah.
So.
But I have friends who still say, "Nope, you weren't born here. You're still from New York, son."
Again, Tom, welcome on the GRADD Dialogue.
Thank you.
I know I've seen you managing the MPO Technical Advisory Committee as well as the Policy Committee and everything else. So what we're going to talk about is how a project gets selected and planned and developed.
Okay.
I know that the impact that you and your work and the committee has. It could be from natural bridge that was planned and put together, along with I-69, 65, and many of the local projects that had to do those things. So I think you called that as a SHIFT, S-H-I-F-T.
Right.
Okay.
A few years ago, the governor. Well, let me start. Kentucky used to have far more projects planned than they had money to pay for. So Governor Bevin said, we need a scientific way. We need to find a way to prioritize, to really figure out what are the best projects that need to be done first. So he commissioned this SHIFT program. It's the Strategic Highway Infrastructure Transportation Formula. And so what happens is all the MPOs across the state and transportation agencies, they have a master list, a kind of a wish list of projects they'd like to see done in their communities. So here in the Owensboro Daviess County MPO, we were told that of our big wish list that has about 100 projects on it, we could choose 9. And so we submitted our 9 projects we thought that the MPO thought was best, and submitted those to the state. The state scored them on things like, if we did this project, what would it do to the safety of the roads? Would it make things safer? What's the cost benefit of this project? Would it encourage economic development? And they did this for thousands of projects across the state. All the counties, all the organizations, all the cities presented these projects. And they scored them on a 100-point scale. And then they take them back to your member organizations and said, your project, for our case, let's talk about the widening of Kentucky 54 project that's going on here in Owensboro right now. That project scored 55.5 points on this ranking by the state. And they said, so right now you're kind of in the middle of the pack. But the MPO was given 4 15-point boosts. We could choose, of those 9 projects we submitted, we could choose 4 of those and boost them by 15 points to try to move them up the scale. So the Kentucky 54 project was one of those, and so now we have submitted our scores back to the state, and they're reevaluating to see what other people boosted, and to again just line them up in a score starting at 100 points down to 0. And what this will do is it will allow them to say, okay, these are the projects that, based on some qualitative analysis, some actual data, rather than just, we feel like we need to fix this road. Based on safety issues, economic development, asset management, is it a bridge that needs to be repaired? They can quantify those numbers and then rank them and see what are the most needed projects in the state of Kentucky, in every city, in every county, in every region. And that way the money that they do have gets spent as effectively as possible.
So
because one of the
getting away from who you know in Frankfurt and all those things.
Right. There will always be a little flex room for, you know, projects that slip through the cracks. Something that should have scored better. You know, you can still call your legislator and say, hey, this road needs help. Can you help us out? And he may be able to help you, or she may not be able to help you. But yeah, what this is doing, it's not the finalist. But it sets a real solid framework for what the next state highway fund is going to look like, and what the project list will be.
It's kind of an analogy of shifting, you know, a flower to get the
that's actually a pretty good
from the thousands of projects comes out to be about the top, you know, based on some of the factors and everything else.
Yeah, there are a lot of projects that are real pie in the sky stuff that people have had in highway plans in the past that maybe aren't practical or aren't practical anymore. You know, 30 years ago this was a good idea, but the way the city of Owensboro has grown, this project really isn't practical anymore. So they're trying to weed some of those projects out.
Who comes up with the project?
Ultimately, it's the people who live in Owensboro and Daviess County. The MPO is a board that's made up of community leaders here in Owensboro and Daviess County who have an expertise in transportation. The mayor of Owensboro, the judge executive, the head of the Chamber of Commerce, the head of the Riverport, the head of the airport, people who have, like I said, who have an interest and an expertise in this area. So they poll their staff and their friends, and you know, they are out in the community and they look and see what, you know, like the Chamber will look at and say, we have this area that's ripe for economic development, but the roads leading into this area are not good enough to support semis. So the Chamber recommends that we consider putting a road and entering that into our wish list. You know, we'd like a road out here. But a lot of that comes from the people. You know, right now I'm just starting a process of going out and visiting all the neighborhood alliances in Owensboro and talking to folks about what do they need? What do they see on their commute to work or when they're picking up their kids from school? What road needs to be fixed? And I'm starting to get some feedback and, you know, telling me this area is a problem. One of the ones that caught me by surprise was Old Litchfield Road between 18th Street and Kentucky 54, which runs there behind Rolling Heights. That road is not level, it's not straight, it's narrow, and there's no shoulders, and it's getting a ton more traffic now than it did 10 years ago because of all the work on Kentucky 54.
I take that road about 4 times a day.
Yeah, and then you know, well, my wife works right over by there, and she's on that road a lot, and it's a road that desperately needs something done to it. So that's going to be one that we're going to try and get into the next shift cycle, you know, and get that as a project on our wish list of things that we need to take a look at.
However, you know, we go through the whole process you described, selecting a project, then going to the ranking, and people deciding on, you know, what is important, which not. Then the final number, the state has to put the money. Is there any kind of money, you know, set aside? You can say, okay, Owensboro, Daviess County MPO can get certain amount of money or not. You know, just that statewide competition, or how?
Yeah, it's statewide. It's not money set aside for the Owensboro MPO. Now, like I said, the boosts are to try correct that, because, you know, the smaller communities, even smaller than Owensboro, would have a hard time getting projects into their community because they'd be competing. Because you've got, you know, Whitesville, Kentucky is competing against Louisville. I mean, they're competing for the same money. So that's what the boost does. The boost says, you know, we have this project in Whitesville that we can add 15 points to make it raise up the ranks. The other thing that is, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet District 2 office in Madisonville covers all transport. They're in charge of all the state roads in our area, in the GRADD region. They have 15-point boosts that they can add to a project as well. So a project potentially can get 2 15-point boosts, one from us and one from the state. So like the Kentucky 54 project, we did add 15 points to it, and KYTC did too. So that 55-point score is now 85 points. So it's got a real high probability of getting funded in the next. And
the citizen watching the show, they're gonna say, "Oh, you don't give me all those things, you know. I mean, you know, that's your job, and you get paid for all the bureaucracy and everything else. You tell me, what are this year or the last years? What are the top 5 or 6 top projects in our Owensboro Daviess County region?"
The top project right now in the Owensboro-Daviess County region is the one I keep referring to. It's the Kentucky 54 project. It's a huge bottleneck, especially with the new development going out there, the lifestyle community right there where the theater's going in, and so that's got to be widened. And that project is the #1. According to KYTC, I think it's one of the 5 top projects statewide.
Is it just on that section only, or all the way to Whitesville?
At this point, it's from the bypass, the former bypass, all the way out to Jack Hinton Road.
Okay.
There is some talk of, in the distant future, expanding because that's where Owensboro and Daviess County is growing, and that's what the MPO is for. It's to look down the road. That's the planning aspect of MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization. That's the planning aspect, is to look and see where is Owensboro growing, where are the roads that are going to need to be improved, and conversely, this area is starting to stagnate. We're seeing people move out of this area. Do we need to add new roads? We maintain what's here, but do we need to add new roads over here if people are moving out of this area and moving out down towards Whitesville? So that's what the planning aspect is.
What's the other projects?
The other projects we boosted were, I'm sorry, I just blanked. Between Burlew Boulevard, Old Hartford Road, between Burlew Boulevard and Breckenridge Street. It's kind of hemmed in there on both sides by the cemeteries. So something needs to be done in that area. Really addressing pavement conditions. The road is rough. I'm not sure that there's really opportunity to widen it because it is hemmed in on both sides by cemeteries. But certainly maybe address some turn lane issues. One of the other projects we boosted was doing some work on 18th Street between Breckenridge and Litchfield. And this is one of those I was just talking about planning. That project's actually broken up into 3 parts. It's 18th Street from Frederica to J.R. Miller to Breckenridge, and Breckenridge to Litchfield. And the project is to realign the lanes and maybe widen it some to allow a center turn lane and to try and ease some of the congestion in there. Of those 3 projects, the only ones we boosted this time was Breckenridge to Litchfield. The other 2 projects are important, but we thought, the MPO thought, not me, but the MPO thought that section was the one where it's the bottleneck is the worst between Breckenridge and Litchfield.
There has been some discussion in the past for a roundabout near the Hillcrest Golf Course.
Yeah, that's
and the Saddles Road.
That's one of our projects. We did not put a boost on that. We didn't need to. That was already in the project. That is in the pipeline to happen. And then the 4th project we boosted was on Fairview Drive between Kentucky 54 and Settles Road. So between the roundabout there and the work on Fairview, that area is going to see a lot of work in the near future.
So all these projects that you go through the whole process of getting everybody's input and expertise in technical as well as the community expertise and all that, kind of ends up being a final list that goes to the state for funding and everything else.
Yeah.
So I mean, generally, what is a time span? If somebody, it varies depending on the project. But you're talking about seeing some results on those projects within 2, 3, 4 years?
Yeah, the ones that we boost, because what we're setting right now is, what we're doing is called Shift 2020. So the goal, we started in 2018, this process will finish, and when it finishes at the end of this year, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet will present to the governor, like I said, the outline of projects for the next 2 years. And that is the skeleton of the 2020-2022 2-year state highway plan. So if those projects get funded, then sometime in 2020 to 2022, those projects should get off the ground. They're not going to be completed in that time frame, but the Kentucky 54 project is going to take years to get this done. But it's in the current project. It's in the next shift as well. They'll just keep going forward. But yeah, these projects that are really high priority, you should see some movement on them in the next 2 years.
I do want to thank you and all the work for the MPO does and the policy committee does, along with the cabinets. We have seen growth in terms of I-165 already been designated. I-69 has been designated. Now you're talking about designating the part of the West Kentucky Parkway from I guess from service area on all the way down to Hopkinsville to 365 or
Yep,
369
that's
or
on the
something
work,
like
right?
that.
And
So all those things in the end they're gonna end up being a great economic boost for our region.
we hope so. Yeah, that's the hope is that all this planning we do that you know that these are really educated guesses, and these people who make these the MPO members are really smart. They know what they're doing. So yeah, it should really pay off in the end.
And I think they're lucky to have you to provide the technical
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate
Yes,
I appreciate your confidence.
And I'm so glad to have you on my GRADD staff too.
And it's good to be a part of your staff, sir.
We've been talking to Tom Lovett, the MPO director at GRADD, about what is happening in Owensboro, Daviess County as far as the planning for the new projects, so extension of the major highways, and some of the key important road network that would have an economic development impact as time goes on. If you have any questions, you would think about a specific information about a project, you can always contact him at the GRADD office, or you can also go on the GRADD website, and I think you should be able to find all the project lists that we discussed and everything else. So I hope you have a better knowledge about what is happening in our community, and any question you can always call me at the GRADD office, and you have a great day. Thank you very much.